My name is Ryan Sepulveda. My purpose in life is to serve Christ, and my passion is to help everybody understand that God has a life waiting on you, and on the other side of all the things going on right now is complete joy and love. And when I was younger, I completely was not who I am today, and it's because of I simply didn't know God, and I didn't know what He was capable of doing, and I didn't know that all the things that were affecting me when I was younger weren't from God. And once I found out the truth, I became who I am today. So my purpose in life is to lead others to Christ, to help them live the life that God has waiting for them.
Amen.
Yes, very high energy. I watch old videos from, my mom and dad recordings, and all I hear is my mom in the background, Ryan, be still. Ryan, sit down. Ryan, stop doing that. Ryan, stop climbing on that. So yes, that's who I was. I started feeling and realizing, that my dad was an alcoholic, and there was a lot of tension in my household a lot of times, and alcohol normally played a big role in that. And, my grandpa was by far a huge alcoholic, and while I didn't know what that was at the time, it seemed normal to me, so at the time it didn't affect me. And my grandma would pray the rosary all the time, and it's funny because she would pray it in Spanish, and I don't know Spanish, and so we'd be sitting there in the room, and every now and then she'd nudge me in the elbow because I started falling asleep, and but knowing and looking back now, it is her who taught me and left the imprint of prayer, and how committed she was to saying that rosary every night. It planted a seed in me that has blossomed and bear the fruit of God today. And as I got older, I was always involved in sports. I was always outgoing, always had a lot of friends. I come from a good community. Man, my parents, my dad would work 15 hours, and he'd come home and coach us, and go to a game, go home, do the dinner thing, go to sleep for 3 hours, and go back to work. You know what I mean? And then the next day, guess what? He's doing that for my brother, and the next day he's doing that for me again. So my dad played a huge role in my upbringing in sports, and my mom was literally at every school event that went on, whether it was a PTO meeting, whether it was a field trip. My dad would be there too on a field trip, whether it was track and field or whether it didn't matter. My parents were always involved in my life.
What did that do for you?
That made me feel, loved, and it made me feel like I knew I was definitely in a good spot as a kid, and my parents were there for me 100%, and it really helped me develop into the person I am today. Like, I'm high energy, but that's how my mom is, and I smile and talk to everybody because my mom and dad did when I was growing up. That's just who my parents were. They were very outgoing, and yeah, so them being there for me made me feel loved.
That's awesome. So what was the turning point? What happened in your childhood or in your adolescence?
The turning point for me was me, also growing up, I was watching a lot of rated R movies. I was getting examples of what not to do, but at the time it seemed cool to do these things. As I started realizing what beer was and what liquor was, and I had uncles and cousins that were doing drugs around me, and I'm talking about the age of 10 and 11, even 9, I'm seeing people getting drunk and doing drugs inside of a movie. And so I'm getting exposed to it, learning about it, and now I'm learning about, so I started getting in fights in school, and, I started learning about drugs, and started learning about sex, and so these things all became something to me I thought was cool, and that I wanted to experience, and that I wanted to venture out and see what it was like on my own, So that was kind of my turning point, was being exposed to that sinful life at a young adult.
So when did it go from just exposure to actually?
Let's put it this way, in 6th grade, I smoked weed for the first time with someone that was very close to me. And, that completely, it was cool. And I loved it, man. I'm finally doing what all the cool guys are doing in the movies. You know what I mean? I was stealing my grandpa's cigarettes when I was 10. And, I was trying to drink my dad's beer around 6th grade as well. I was drinking my dad's beer at 6th grade. My dad gets a 12-pack of beer, and he goes to sleep. At the end of the day, I'm going to go take some of his beer. Or we go to a party and there's liquor there, I'm going to sneak some of the liquor, So it was around that time that I completely started doing other things, was right around 6th grade. And around this time, it was also a time where my parents too were also, they had a big group of friends that every weekend they were getting together and they were drinking and having a good time. Clean fun, but the thing about it is you see, I was in 6th grade, which my brother was like in 8th or 9th grade. So they were gone majority of the weekend, which left us at home. And I found these new experiences that I was enjoying, like drugs and sex and alcohol. And so while they were going, we were doing these things. And you see, my parents had no idea. And of course, we were slick about it too, and it wasn't even that hard to be slick about it because they would leave. And we know they're not coming home until midnight. And I know they're going to be drunk themselves, so I knew I could get away with murder at the time.